In the heart of New York City, just a few blocks away from the bustling streets of Manhattan and the serenity of Central Park, stood an old, decrepit hotel, Hotel Blackwood. Once considered a prestigious establishment, the hotel had long since fallen into obscurity, its grandeur fading with time. Its creaky wooden floors, stained wallpaper, and dimly lit hallways gave the place an eerie, almost forsaken feeling. But it wasn't just its decaying physical state that made it infamous. It was the legend of Room 707. Room 707 was notorious among the few who still dared to stay at the hotel. Whispers about the room had circulated for years, stories of strange happenings, vanishing guests, and unexplained occurrences. It was said that anyone who entered Room 707 never came back, as if the room had a sinister power that trapped the soul of anyone who dared to spend the night. Despite the growing fear and local rumors, one man wasn't afraid. A journalist named Alex Morgan, known for his fearless investigations into dark and twisted stories, had made it his mission to uncover the truth about the room. He knew that if there was any way to expose the truth, he would have to experience it firsthand. On a cold, gloomy night, Alex checked into Hotel Blackwood, determined to unravel the mystery of Room 707 and, if possible, survive the night. Alex Morgan had always been drawn to the eerie and unexplained. As a journalist, his career had taken him to the most haunted places, the most disturbing crime scenes, and the deepest corners of human history. But when he first heard the legend of Room 707 at Hotel Blackwood, something about it gnawed at him. He had to know what was really going on inside that room. There was a story waiting to be told, and he was determined to write it. He arrived at the hotel on a crisp autumn evening. The moment he stepped inside, the air grew cold, and the atmosphere of the place felt thick, almost oppressive. The old chandelier above him flickered with dim light, casting long shadows across the lobby. The furniture was worn, and the floorboards creaked under his feet. Despite the hotel's faded elegance, there was an undeniable aura of history, and something far darker. The receptionist, an elderly woman with a stern face, greeted him in a voice that cracked with age. "Room 707, is it?" she asked, eyeing him carefully. "Not many choose to stay in that room anymore." Alex smiled, masking the unease that crept up his spine. "I'm here to investigate. I've heard the stories and I want to see for myself." The woman's expression remained unchanged. She handed him an old, rusted key without a word. "If you must, just know, once you enter that room, there's no going back." Alex didn't flinch. He thanked her and made his way up the creaking staircase, the key cold in his hand. He passed several doors along the narrow hallway, each one marked with a faded number. Finally, he reached the end of the hall, where Room 707 stood, its door cracked slightly open as if inviting him in. The door was old, its wood warped and scarred by time. The room smelled faintly of mildew and dust, a sense of neglect hanging in the air. He stepped inside and surveyed the space. It was a small room, sparsely furnished with a creaky bed, a tarnished dresser, and a single chair beside the window. A large, ornate mirror hung above a chipped sink in the corner. The dim lighting only added to the room's unsettling atmosphere. He took a deep breath and tried to shake off the growing unease. "It's just a room," he muttered to himself. But deep down, he knew this room was no ordinary room. As the evening wore on, Alex set up his camera and notebook, preparing to document whatever he could about the mysterious happenings rumored to occur here. He couldn't help but feel the weight of the stories, the ones of guests who entered the room and never returned, of the whispers of something supernatural lurking within the walls. Nightfall came quickly, and with it, a cold that seemed to seep into every corner of the room. Alex tried to distract himself, reviewing his notes and reading up on the history of Hotel Blackwood. He had been told that the hotel had once been a place of opulence and luxury, but its decline began after a tragic event, an unsolved murder, followed by a string of disappearances. The hotel's reputation soured, and soon it was left in the hands of neglect. But the real mystery had always been room 707. It was around midnight when Alex first noticed something odd. The door, which had been cracked open when he entered, was now closed. He didn't recall hearing it shut. He stood up from his chair and walked over to the door, attempting to open it. But the door wouldn't budge. He turned the handle again, pushing against it with his shoulder, but it was as if something was blocking it from the other side. His heart began to race as a chill ran down his spine. "What the hell is going on here?" he muttered under his breath.
He stepped back, trying to calm himself. His gaze fell on the mirror above the sink. It was then that he saw it. A faint figure, just a blur at first, but then clearer. A woman, standing in the reflection. Her face was pale, her eyes dark and hollow, staring directly at him. She wore an old-fashioned dress, tattered at the edges, and her hair hung in long, stringy strands. Alex's breath caught in his throat. His pulse quickened as he slowly turned to look at the bathroom behind him. But when he looked back at the mirror, the figure was gone. The room was still. He approached the mirror cautiously, his hand hovering above the surface. It felt cold to the touch, colder than it should have been. He wiped the fog off the glass, but the reflection remained unsettlingly still. As he turned to leave, he noticed something strange, a faint handprint, just visible enough to make out against the condensation on the mirror. It was as though someone had pressed their hand to the glass, but there was no one in the room. A sense of dread settled in his chest. The legends had spoken of this, of an entity that haunted this room, an entity that was tied to the fate of its victims. Alex was starting to realize that he wasn't just investigating a story. He was in the middle of one. Suddenly, the air around him grew heavier, and a low hum filled the room. It was a sound that seemed to vibrate through the walls, making Alex's skin crawl. He glanced around, trying to find the source of the noise. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through Alex. He stumbled toward the door again, pulling at the handle, but it was still locked. He was trapped. The room felt smaller now, closing in on him, and the temperature seemed to drop even further. He turned back toward the mirror. To his horror, the woman's reflection was there again, but this time she was closer, much closer. Her hollow eyes stared into his soul, and her mouth slowly twisted into a grin. Alex froze, unable to move, as if something invisible was holding him in place. The woman's lips parted, and in a voice that sounded like it came from the depths of a grave, she spoke. "You shouldn't have come." Alex opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The room began to spin, and he felt his legs give way beneath him. His vision blurred, and the last thing he saw before collapsing to the floor was the woman's face, inches away from his own, her cold breath brushing against his skin. The next morning, the hotel staff found the door to room 707 ajar, but inside there was no sign of Alex Morgan. His camera and notebook lay on the bed, his belongings scattered across the room. The only thing missing was Alex himself. Days passed, and the police were called in to investigate, but they found no trace of the journalist. The hotel's reputation, already tarnished, sank even further as the news spread of another disappearance. Room 707 remained locked, its door now bolted shut. No one dared enter it again. The hotel continued its slow decline, but the legend of Room 707 lived on, as did the mystery of what truly happened to those who entered and never returned. And so, Hotel Blackwood remained, silent, dark, and forever haunted by the lost souls of Room 707. Do you have the courage to face the horrors of Room 707 at Hotel Blackwood? If you're ready to step into the unknown, give this story a like and share it with others who dare to test their bravery. Have you ever encountered something that you couldn't explain? Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts or any eerie experiences you've had. Could there be truth behind the legend of Room 707? We'd love to hear your theories. Remember, the mystery awaits, and only the boldest will uncover what lies behind that locked door. Will you be the next to discover the chilling secrets of Hotel Blackwood?